Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. I'd like to thank you all for joining me on another powerful, geopolitical expedition around the globe, okay? Everybody, thank you all for real. All jokes aside, thank you all for joining me. Listen, today's show is titled Live. The Pandora's box has been opened. And what do I mean by that? Is that all international norms continue to be broken. Everywhere we look and everything that we see marks the end of this world as we know it. I'm not talking about the end of the earth. It's going to still rotate at 1,037 and 1/3 miles per hour. It still is going to have a circumference of 25,000 miles, square miles, okay? It's still going to do that. But what I'm talking about is an international order that is in utter decay. We see one dying, one merging in on the death of the other one, okay? It is something very important to look at. The Pandora's box has been opened. And what do I mean by that? Shout out to my guy, Perseverance Chameleon. Man, let me, hold on before I go anywhere. Let me see something. I want to make a couple of comments, and then we're going to proceed with the show. I told you guys to stay looking at the numbers of the show. YouTube now has us under 4,500 again. I told you. Did I tell you? Watch the numbers. Every show, I'm the only person on YouTube that after every show, regardless if I'm by myself or have a guest, I have subscribers. That is no coincidence. All right? They have put my show under 4,500 subscribers. Do you actually believe that, everybody? Do you actually believe that? And we were watching it as it tick down, tick down, tick down, tick down. And I told my daughter yesterday, I said, by tomorrow, they'll have us under 4,500. Say, hey, let me go back to show you. Let's go back for a minute. Hold on. Where is the subscription? Hold on one second. And we're not off the subject, but I just want to show you about the level of censorship and how they suppress real alternative media. Real. They let everybody else explode. The ones who have connections in politics, the ones who have connections with different governments, and the ones who have connections and are able to rub elbows with all of these people that are untouchable. They let those people go in the hundreds of thousands. But they're more worried about this show here. Let me see something real quick. Maybe. I'll go on this one. I'll go on this screen real quick because it's easier. Excuse me. So when I'm looking this way, I'm looking at two screens here, one here, okay? And then one here. So everybody hold on one second and pull up something. I'll tell you the exact number. All right. That they have me at now, which is outrageous. Studio. 4,499. I told my daughter that they would have me under 4,500 by the day. And I was right. That because I'm used to them doing that. So you guys check your subscriptions, see if you're still subscribed, because either they're unsubscribing people or they're just kicking people completely off, okay? So shout out to everybody that's joining me on Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, Twitter, BitChute, Locals, the Red Pill Diaries, the Red Pill Journals. It's one more. It's one more. I can't. Did I say Twitter? Twitter is tripping too. So for all of you who know, we're going to address that Twitter stuff too. Now, Perseverance Community. Let me put your comment up on the screen. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They have me in the crosshairs. You better believe that. But I can deal with it. I'm built for this. You know, I am built for this. What is? Let me see something real quick. Hold on one second. Now I got kicked off my YouTube dashboard over here. Hold on, everybody. I don't have these problems with Rumble. Not saying that I won't have. I'm just saying I don't have them with Rumble. At this moment. So look, the name of the show is titled "The Pandora's Box Has Been Opened," and the reason I titled it "The Pandora's Box Has Been Opened" is because that all international norm, all acceptable international policies and politics have been broken. The United States continues to eat away and chew at all of the fibers that held together their own world order. And we look at it, look at how they continue to say that if you go back a year ago, how they said, well, we will not send tanks to Ukraine. We will not send warplanes to Ukraine. That's World War III. We'll be fighting World War III. We will not send attackers. We will not send storm shadows. We will not do this. And in increments of arrogance, they continue to step past their own red lines. They continue to escalate. Look at what happened in Iran. Look at just the Middle East and now in North Africa all together. The United States and Europe had an influx of terrorism or terrorists to cause terrorism so that they can then justify their military escapades to dominate resource or rich areas of certain countries. They never fought the terrorists. They never brought them to yield. And yet they still demanded a military bases in the Sahel. France was so arrogant about it that in Chad, before they got kicked out, France murdered. Listen to what I said. I used the word murder. Let's get to something so that YouTube won't be able to kick me out, because I'm going to use YouTube's boss's definition. Okay? Okay, murdered comes from the root word murder, all right? And it is past tense, right? And it says, kill someone unlawfully and with premeditation, right? Now, they were in Chad. The government of Chad and the people of Chad were protesting all of these military bases that France had there. And France was claiming to be fighting terror, but the terrorists continued to beat the people, rob the people, rape the people, and France did nothing. But a lot of the resources were starting to leave. And then France would allow their corporations to come in and do studies on where resource-rich areas of the country were. So finally, and France fought this tooth and nail. The people of Chad demanded that they leave. They protest daily. Did you know after France was forced out of Chad that they found mass burials? And this was not deep burial, right? Where France military gunned down protesting people, and just covered their body with sand, not even enough to preserve the body, just threw sand on them. And just left them out in the desert like bandits. Did you know that? If what I'm saying to you is not true, Google it. Yahoo it, ping it, DuckDuckGo it. This is what they're talking about, the preservation of life. They care nothing about your life. If your life is about preserving your integrity, your life is about preserving your national sovereignty, preserving your resources, preserving your people, preserving your way of life, that is not on the agenda. Everybody must be a democracy according to the United States, according to France. Even though France just skirted the lines of democracy when the outcome of the election did not suit it. The same with the EU. They skirted democracy when it did not fit their leaders, when their leaders were losing, when the people chose another brand, the people in power just skirted the laws to remain in power. The United States right now is talking about Georgia. Let me pull up something real quick. Where's my mouse? Which screen is it on? Okay. Georgia. All right. Let me pull up something for you guys. And we're going to go back to that definition in a minute. All right. Let's see, Georgia. And we got some videos to show you guys too. Shout out to Ping One. Shout out to Ping One. All right. Here we are. All right. There we are. I knew I could pull it up. Now, what does the United States, what is it the United States business to set up polling stations in Georgia, right? And then when the polling data does not come out in favor of the U.S. and the West, they get ahead of the election and say that they project that the opposition wins. Isn't that interfering in elections and tampering in sovereign nations' elections in their sovereign affairs? Isn't that what that is? But they did it. Now check this out. I want to show you the bizarreness of this stuff. You cannot dispute or bring up any doubt about Biden's legitimacy as a president and what happened when he and Trump ran for president, and how one side questioned the elections and questioned the fairness of it and questioned whether it was being tampered with. You get deplatformed, censored, and stigmatized, taken out of the algorithm, everything. But on a daily basis now, since the election in Georgia, that's what you see on YouTube. That's what you see everywhere. Questioning the legitimacy of the elections in Georgia. How is that fair? People are fed up with this. This is what I'm telling you. They have opened up this Pandora's box, and something has leaked out of it that they can't put back in. And what's happening is it is tearing down the foundations of Western hegemony, because the world is now getting a clear view of the hypocrisy of the West, the double standard of the West, the arrogance and the hubris of the West. And they're starting to actually say it, no longer whisper it, they're actually starting to say it, that in the rules-based order, there's rules for thee, but not for me. If I'm America, if I'm Britain, if I'm France, if I'm this, I can do anything that I want to and call it international law. How dare you question whether or not we really tried to bomb those people? How dare you think that we really murdered those people? That's collateral damage. In a foreign nation, thousands of miles away, that does not threaten the territorial integrity or the sovereignty of America, France, Britain, Germany, or any NATO nation. But if those people of that nation fight back, it's terrorism. They're insurgents. They're terrorists. They're Islamists. The arrogance of these people. You know, it reminds me of a scripture. And I'm versed in Quran and I'm versed in Bible. But it reminds me of an old biblical story about Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar, right? And how the arrogance and being inebriated with power says, look at what my hands have wrought, right? Salam, Ping One, salam. So this is where we are with the Western world, if you get what I'm saying. They are so arrogant, so full of themselves, right, that they don't see that the policies that they're trying to perpetrate on the world are actually helping to bring down the empire. That Pandora box is open now. Look what happened. At one time, it was taboo to say that an Arab or Muslim nation would directly strike Israel. Is it taboo today? No. When I was telling you guys 2 years ago that Israel and Iran will fight, America and Iran will fight, when everybody was so focused on Ukraine, and I told you the war to look for is the MENA war, Middle Eastern, North African war. They looked at me, oh, nah. This thing going on in Ukraine is this and that. I said, listen, that's a sideshow, a very bloody sideshow. That's not going to escalate. That Caucasus, Balkan area, that it's going to escalate, but in due time. What's going on in North Africa, the Middle East, what they call West Asia, that's going to percolate to the top. Now we remember what I told you a few days ago about how it seemed to me that Iran was trying to talk their way out of striking back on Iran, on Israel. And then I noticed the very next day, all of the pundits were saying that maybe this is it. Maybe this is the off ramp. Maybe this is such and such. So listen, there's a time for peace. Ecclesiastes? There's a time and a purpose unto all things, right? Right? You don't understand. This is what I keep trying to tell you, that in order for there to be justice, that which hinders justice must be removed. In order for there to be peace, the peace breaker must be removed. Without that happening, you cannot have any prolonged, sustained, or fruitful peace or justice. I know people don't like to hear that, but sometimes you just got to hear the truth, even if it hurts you. The world cannot live in tyranny forever. That's not the way men and women were created. Those who sponsor tyranny, sponsor destruction, sponsor division, sponsor destabilization, sponsor and delight themselves in war. What did the scriptures, both Holy Quran and the Bible, tell you? That God delights himself in making war with those who love to make war. America has been in existence under 300 years. She's been at war, all but 12. That's a war maker. That's a berserker nation. That is a berserker nation. Look up the word berserker. To all you know is war, and then when things don't go your way, what does she go right back to? Talk to me. When nations won't bow to her dictates, her bribes, her threats, what does she do? Go into the demonization mode, go into the provocation mode to justify what? War and the making of war. See, this Pandora's box is open now, and there's no putting the genie back into that bottle because the time has changed, right? This is not 40 years ago when people didn't have access to the internet and access to so many things at their fingertips. This is not 40 years ago when the governments around the West had total control over all of the instruments of power globally, had total control over the information sphere of things. This is not then. Now you're looking at the masses of the people on a daily basis screaming for equality, screaming for justice, screaming for freedom, screaming to be left to their own design. Who in the hell gave America and Britain the right to talk about democracy? Listen to me good. I got to talk about this as we talk on these things, and I haven't forgotten about the definition, and I haven't forgotten about Georgia. This stuff goes hand in hand with it. Let me get a sip of water. Who gives them the right to talk about what governance a nation should be governed by? As if they put a one-size-fits-all for everybody. That everybody must be this way. See, that's God's thinking. Look here. They believe that they're the God of this world. They believe that they are the power. And God makes in his image and his likeness. Every time you talk, it must be democratic values. It must be X, Y, and Z. In their mind, they are the power. And in their mind, you are their pot. They are the potters and you're the pot. So they're trying to fashion you and mold you into their image and into their likeness. But that's not acceptable for the world. because you have different atmosphere. When I say that, the reason people in Australia speak a little bit different from the people in America is because of the atmospheric pressure, right? That means there's something a little bit different there than it is here. The reason that people in Africa across the continent speak differently because there's little variances of atmospheric pressure, or else everybody would speak the same language. That should be thought about when we're trying to form governments. The culture, the atmosphere is somewhat different. So the Brits speak a little bit different from the Americans because the atmospheric pressure and the environment which they came up with. So you, hello, my dude, hello. And then you see the country boy here. You understand? But they're trying to make a one-size-fits-all for everybody, even though they don't adhere to that one size. There was a dispute with John Kerry when he was running for president. There was a dispute with Al Gore when he ran for president. There was a dispute with Donald Trump and Biden when they ran for president. There was all kinds of congressional disputes, state and local disputes. And then you want to tell me and tell the world that you have perfected democracy and that you should be the beacon of democracy for everybody else? And that they should govern and formulate their governance and their government as you would like them? Man, you have lost your flipping mind. And Britain screams about democratic values. How can you scream about democratic values when you're not even a democracy? The king can dismiss the parliament. The king has his advisor in the government to make sure that the government does exactly what he says, even though he pretends as though he has a hands-off policy with the prime minister and the government form. That is why they're always informing him. If he has no hands in government, why do they always inform him of the policies? And why does he retain the royal prerogative to sit down governments from New Zealand to Canada, from Australia to Jamaica, to London? How the hell is that democracy, to overthrow the will of the people? Van der Leyen, talking about democratic values. Who the hell made you the king of Europe or the queen of Europe? Whichever you want to say it is. That was a little joke on the cover, huh? These are absolute. Matter of fact, I won't say it. I'm gonna say Nick Hall says it better than I have. I've said it, so I'm gonna post his comment up there. These are absolute what, Nick? Criminals. They are criminals. So they want to force these. Let's go back to this definition of murder. Friends, you're not getting off the hook that quick. Murdered comes from the word murder, which is a verb, and it is past tense, right? It means to kill someone unlawfully and with premeditation. Kill, put to death, assassinate, execute, liquidate, eliminate. So they found multiple areas in Chad, and it barely made a sidebar in the British and Western news or tabloids. They found multiple mass grave sites where the French listen to me good, gunned down the protesting people in Chad that wanted their military bases off of that land and then just sprinkled dirt over them. It wasn't even dust to cover up the whole bodies. And then friends, we had nothing to do with it. The hell you mean it's right outside your base? You telling me you had nothing to do with it, you didn't see it, yet you have people posted up day and night and they didn't see any murder of those people, those civilians. You had nothing to do with bombing the only manufacturing facility in the Central African Republic. But yet, when Russia and other nations had looked at their satellites, they said that it was French warplanes that bombed that thing. And they were mad because CAR demanded for them to remove their troops out of CAR. They bombed them. And then They did a data analysis and tested the bomb. It was a NATO bomb. France warplanes in the air at the time, violating multiple African nations' airspace. The bomb matched the carrier plane, the plane that carries certain bombs that was in the air that matched the French, and the French said they didn't do it. Man, if you don't get out of here with this foolishness, this Pandora box is opened now. And look, let's go to something real quick. So, as I said to you, the United States, over here, you can't question Biden's legitimacy, but they're questioning the legitimacy of the newly elected government of Georgia because they want to prioritize Russia. Now, why wouldn't they prioritize Russia? Russia is a next door neighbor. Russia shares culture and history with them. Why wouldn't they prioritize Russia? They were all in a union together. Why wouldn't they do it? But in America's mind, in Britain's mind, in NATO's mind, it's not okay to be friends with Russia. It's not okay to be in a union with Russia because we want everybody to choose for themselves. And once they choose to be out of a union with Russia, NATO gobbles them up. Tell me where I'm lying at. Shout out to Nick Hall. I didn't say it. Shout out to Nikki. Shout out to Ping One. Shout out to Perseverance Chameleon. Shout out to, I know I'm missing, Random Reserve. I always miss his name. Shout out everybody. And let's go. The pro-Western president of Georgia, which does not hold much power. The power lies in the hands of the prime minister, which is not pro-Western. And what they're trying to do is clean out the last vestiges of Saakashvili's crew who came to power on coups. That's what they're doing. So before the election took place, the person who has been receiving a lot of money from the West, the president of Georgia, and here's the history behind her. She wasn't born in Georgia. She was born in France. I believe she even played a part of French politics, and I think she was an ambassador from France to Georgia. Isn't that crazy? Let me see if I can pull up some of this. This is crazy here. I'm telling you, this is how they do. And if you don't think they've done Ukraine like this, and what's crazy about this woman would rather accept bribes and do this and turn Georgia into another war zone than to let Georgia be and continue on its path, right? Greed over lives, right? Let me see if I can pull this up real quick for you guys while I'm talking to you. I know one of these articles may have something about the. Let me see if I can put it up. I think this might be one. Hold on. All right, let's see. A series of what? It's in this article. Let's see. The Georgian president. Let me see what the Georgian president. Hold on one second, everybody. And it's hard to pronounce those names. Salome Zarachvili, because they always, a lot of them have the V-I-L-L-I at the end. And it's a lot of consonants, man. It's a lot of consonants. And but they have just as many consonants as they have vowels. And I'm not making fun of, I'm just saying, over in the West, it's not like that. You understand what I'm saying? So that in itself shows you that there's a difference. So things should be allotted for the difference in cultures, but they don't. They don't allot. Let me see who this. I'll put this up here real quick. See if I can pull it up. All right. See about her. I just put it in the search engine. Salome Zarachvili or whatever her name is. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering it, and I'm not trying to offend the Georgians, okay? I'm not doing that, okay? But listen, it says Salome is a French Georgian politician and former diplomat. See, it's very important. How in the heck can she be a former ambassador of France to Georgia and then out of the blue apply for Georgian citizenship when Georgia was under the thumb of the United States completely and then become the Georgian president? Huh? I'm asking. See, these are things that they don't discuss in the news. They just say the Georgian president and make you think that the president is a legitimate entity that is really caring about the state of Georgia. And all of this is connecting to North Africa. All of this is connecting to Iran, Israel. All of this is connecting to Ukraine, Russia, and the United States. Excuse me. It says Salome is a French Georgian politician and former diplomat, currently serving as the 5th president of Georgia, in office since December 2018, right? Now, listen to her thing. I want you to listen to a few things right here. Born 1952, age 72. Where was she born? Paris, France. Not Georgia. Paris, France. All right? All right? Where did she get her education from? She's a professor of sciences or whatever from Columbia University. That's in the United States. School of International and Public Affairs. Right? That should say it all right there. So she's not accepting the election results, and she got ahead of the jump. She followed America and the West opinion polls that they had set up over there. Why would they have opinion polls over in Georgia and then refuse to allow you to have an opinion on Trump and Biden in America? I want you to understand this now. You cannot say that Trump was slighted out of the election 4 years ago. You can't say that you believe that that election was stolen. You cannot infer that Joe Biden is illegitimate. You cannot infer that the opinion polls showed him with a landslide victory, and then the night of the election, things flipped the script. You can't talk about that, right? In America, the land of the free. But America goes in Georgia and questions the legitimacy of the Georgian elections, even though the surrounding nations have verified that the election was fair. Even the European Council said something to that. So they just said they had beef with it, with the leadership trying to direct the path towards Russia. That's what they found. They didn't find any irregularities. They didn't find voter fraud. They just did not like the fact that the incumbent government was leading the people away from submission to the EU, which is an extension of submission to the United States. But America activates their stooge that says they won't recognize the election in Georgia and called, listen, she did not just say she wouldn't recognize it. She called for the people to come on the street and protest and stop the shut down the Georgian economy until the people that she wants in power gets in power. Is that treason? And if it is so, shouldn't she be arrested? Huh? And why isn't the United States saying anything about it? Because they have a hand in it. They have a hand in it. Random says, I'm not really worried about Georgia. They had their President Saakashvili lost the war and are now more resistant to Western influence. The parliament seems to be competent, though. And I mean, enough. We'll see. Well, yeah, true. But still, there's a huge vestige of U.S. plants there. That's what I'm getting at. America, she cultivates a climate of snitches. She goes in with this so-called US aid and all of this stuff, and she goes into area and find the most disaffected or the ones who don't like the government, and then she cultivates that, and then she raises them up on her dogma. Then she strategically funds them and sits them as sleeping agents in different areas of government. So whenever she's ready to call on them, she calls on them like she did the president of Georgia, and then they do their thing, right? So don't believe for 1 minute that all of the people have been removed. Give you an example. All one has to do is look at Brazil. The Lula can't do what he wants to do and cannot move his policy forward because he has to deal with certain parts of his government that has been fully infiltrated, fully, by U.S. and CIA plants. All right. Salute to my guy Mehdi. He's in the building. Salute to Mehdi. Now, on the other hand, Moldova. Now, you say Moldova. Where is it? Where did it go? Moldova. Okay. It says Moldova. On the other hand, very troublesome. Okay, listen. Again, I'm telling you guys, that stuff is going to bubble back around. The Moldovan, all of this other stuff, it's coming back around. But in the Middle East, North Africa, that West Asia area, that's what's going to explode. I've been saying that to you guys before it was even apparent that that was going to happen. And I'm going to stick with that narrative because I've been saying it, and we're now seeing the fruits of what I've been saying for the longest. All right? The fruits of what I've been saying for the longest is something else. Hold on 1 second, everybody. Let me play a little short clip. I got my office door came up. My daughter came through, and she left my office door open, and I can hear the TV down there, and it's echoing right here. So I'm going to play this clip, and we're going to address certain things. I'm going to play this clip one time, and then we're going to go into some other stuff, and then I'm going to bring this clip back up because it has a lot to do with some clips that I downloaded yesterday, okay? So this is about 53 seconds, okay?
We created ISIS. I mean, ISIS is no less than the people up in Islamberg, no less than Gulen, is a CIA creation. John McCain, for heaven's sake, was over there with the ISIS officials. We created them. They came from the Al-Nusra group, the Syrian Liberation Front. These two organizations combined, and they morphed into ISIS. It's our creation. We create them. We still direct them. When ISIS warriors are injured in battle, where are they transported? They're transported, for heaven's sake, to Israel. They're treated by the Israelis in Israeli hospitals and brought back to battle.
Well, plenty of the rebels have acknowledged that they've been supported by Israel, and they've thanked Israel for helping them throughout. In fact, arms are oftentimes caught. Israeli arms are caught on en route to the rebel groups.
Now, turn it down, turn it down, turn it up. I'm listening to something that's playing. I'm sorry, y'all. I knew I was on camera. I was trying to be funny, but I wasn't. Anyway, turn it down, turn it up. All right, there we are right here. So now I want you to understand. Remember this clip that I just played you. We're going to come back to that clip. It's all going to make sense after we play a few other clips, okay? I want to read something. I want to play something for you all because we're going to address the rise of ISIS and Boko Haram and Al-Sham or whatever they want to call it. All of these people are U.S., UK, Israeli, B&D, trained, supplied, armed, and all of that stuff. They take orders from those guys, okay? All right? Now, for my Christian brothers and sisters, I want you to understand they're playing mind tricks with you all. They are demonizing Islam. Now, I want you to, for a minute, I just want you to look at this. Where's the funding for these groups coming from? And how are they able to move? And why aren't the so-called most powerful intelligence agencies in the military able to stop them, but they can go in and they can break up armies and they can break up terrorist cells, but they can't seem to stop ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all of these other terrorist groups. And why do they continue to get arms? If they're desert bandits, how do they continue to make money to buy arms? And how can America track the movement of dollars, right? But can't track the movement of dollars to buy arms for these terrorist groups. I had Scott Bennett, the former chief psychological warfare officer of the U.S. Armed Forces, of the Army, on my show multiple times. And he told me about how he had proof that Obama and the rest of them were funding these outfits. YouTube suspended my show and deleted the videos, but you can check them out. I think some of them are free on Patreon. You can go and Google Scott Bennett. All right, he goes into depth on this and how there's a pipeline going back and forth through these terrorist organizations. All right. What I'm telling you is these are instruments of Western power. How can they be Islamic terrorism when they are being trained by the West, which calls themselves Christians? How can they be Islamic terrorists when the funding, the training, the political, and the economic backing is coming from the West? If one were to do a general breakdown, and I'm not saying that that you are, but I'm just saying, if you were going to label it under any religion, it would have to be Christian terrorism. Where did Wahhabism come from? That was an offshoot of British imperialism. The MI6 came up with that. And they put their boys, the House of Saud, in charge of Arabia. And I bet you most of you didn't know that most of the House of Saud are not even Muslim. They pretend to be. They have destroyed all kinds of Islamic shrines. See, they're playing mind games with you guys. And if you don't have the backing, if you don't have the understanding, they can continue to keep you wrapped up or insulated into the game that they're playing. Okay, let me go to something real quick, because I want to address something. Oh yeah, let me go to this. This is about Georgia. Okay, we're going to tie it in with Iran. We're going to tie it in with North Africa, and we're going to tie it in with UK intelligence and US intelligence. We're going to tie it in with all that. Just give us a second. Okay, check this out.
The situation before and after the elections are two different situations. Before the elections, it was categorically decided to try to change the current Georgian government because it was supposedly pro-Russian. It has not opened a second front, has not announced economic sanctions against Russia, and is passing laws that do not meet European standards. That is, it bans LGBT propaganda and the influence of foreign agents, and has announced transparency to publicly expose foreign agents that everyone already knows about. But nevertheless,
I'm going to come back to this clip again. I just wanted to say, you see, the main part is that the same thing that would happen in Uganda. They were first of all, they're in Uganda anyhow, experimenting with the Ebola virus and offshoots of the coronavirus. They're over there with biolabs right now, experimenting in certain African nations with that. So I want to inform you about that right now. So outside of that, they were funding projects in Uganda. And so they put pressure on the Ugandan government to accept homosexuality. And I'm not, if I have people in my family who are like gay, I have no problem, but I just don't deal with the lifestyle, okay? All right. But that's your prerogative. That's what you choose, then you keep it in your bedroom and don't tell me. But I'm addressing something. So when the Ugandan government stood up and said, no, we don't want that. No. You keep, if your money comes with those strings, you keep that money. The United States sanctioned them. And then there was an influx of terrorism where terrorists came out of nowhere and they were kidnapping little girls from schools and everything, like raping the little girls, killing them and everything. When the Ugandan government said, no, we don't want that whatever it is, LGBT or whatever it is. It's a whole bunch of letters. It's no. And we don't want this other stuff you bringing too. then there was an influx of terrorism. I want to play this short clip, this 1 minute clip again, because this goes to what I'm telling you about, how when they want to destabilize you, they go to their goals and their go-to things, which is terrorism, sanctions, and war. Listen to what the Georgian person said again.
The situation before and after the elections are two different situations. Before the elections, it was categorically decided to try to change the current Georgian government because it was supposedly pro-Russian. It has not opened a second front, has not announced economic sanctions against Russia, and is passing laws that do not meet European standards. That is, it bans LGBT propaganda and the influence of foreign agents, and has announced transparency to publicly expose foreign agents that everyone already knows about. But nevertheless, the elections are over, so they will have to accept the results. Western ambassadors, both from the US and the EU, left room for themselves to maneuver. 2 days before the elections, they started making statements that they would agree with any choice of the Georgian people, because it is the business of the Georgian people to choose their government and not the EU. I'm quoting the EU ambassador to Georgia, Pavel Herchinsky. So they will be forced to start cooperating with the current authorities. The leaders of the ruling party would not have declared for no reason that immediately after the elections there will be a meeting with the US ambassador and relations will be reset. The elections have already been recognized by all neighbors. There are very good responses from international observers, the ones who have not lost their conscience and honesty. Of course, there will be some protests for a few days, but they will not last long. And on November 21st, as it should be according to the Constitution, it will be finally announced and recorded that the elections were successfully held.
Here's the latest article on that. The Kremlin slams unprecedented Western election interference in Georgia. Did I just tell you that what's going on? Spokesman Dmitry Peskov has denounced attempts to arm twist Tbilisi. Tbilisi is the capital of Georgia. It says, the West is openly trying to interfere in Georgia's parliamentary elections. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has said, stressing that voters in the former Soviet Republic have every right to independently choose their own future. Now, I won't go further on that, but check this out. Why is it that it bothers America? See, this is what I'm telling you. They believe that they are the God. They don't want any nation, big, small, or medium-sized, to have an independent thought, an independent policy, and make an independent move outside of what they deem as right. This nation is not even 300 years old, and it's trying to bully everybody and mold everybody and fashion everybody and beat everybody into its image and in its likeness. And if we look at the image of America, look at what's going on. She's falling apart. See, once the power of gold was so abundant in America that she was able to draw the attention to the world because the dollar was not challenged. But now that the dollar has its problems and the economy is imploding and the military arm is being exposed and the intelligence arm is being beat back around the world, guess what? Without that treasure trove of gold, the dollar now does not look as attractive. The city that sitteth on the hill no longer looks as though everybody wants that dream or everybody wants to be like that. And that is unacceptable in the eyes of them. They believe that might makes right, and since we have the might, we've got to make it right in our image right now before we lose this might. They have all kinds of policy papers drawn up on this, if you think I'm lying. So they don't want anybody independent outside of the empire. Period. Look how they reel back in their friends. Look at how they do allies. When Turkey makes a sovereign decision for itself, right? Turkey makes a sovereign decision to go to the BRICS. What happened? I told you about it. Everybody talked about it the day after. The U.S. did that. The NATO caused that terrorist attack in Turkey. That was a warning to Erdogan, don't step too far outside of our grasp. When any European nation gets gets into the ire of the United States, or the United States gets mad, what happens? Something happens to them. They get sanctioned, they get vilified, they get demonized. Look at Hungary, right? Whenever you are trying to exert what's best for your people, what's best for your nation, if it's not acceptable by the U.S., then it's vilified and you become a tyrant, a thug, a thief, a dictator, a king, a ruler, a tyrant. Those are the code words for America's enemy, for you stepping outside of what America wants. I want to play something for you all, okay? I played that about what he said about the terrorism, all right? I want to go to something. I want you to hear this. This is 3 minutes, all right? And remember when I told you that America and the UK are one and the same, or England are one and the same? All right, let's listen.
British intelligence helped Ukrainian troops prepare a planned sabotage of Russia's Kursk nuclear power plant. That's according to Moscow's ambassador to the United Nations, speaking at the latest UN Security Council session.
Representatives of certain countries do a lot of talking about the importance of ensuring the security of nuclear facilities, while accusing us, contrary to any common sense, of destabilizing the security situation around the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, which is under our control. At the same time, they do their best to ignore the obvious fact that regular and reckless attacks against the ZNPP are a deliberate terrorist strategy of Ukraine. But recent events undermine the arguments of all those who try to shelter the armed forces of Ukraine in case of ZNPP. There is irrefutable evidence that Kyiv was also plotting to attack the nuclear power plant in Kursk. According to intelligence we have at our disposals, the planned terrorist attack included capturing and mining of the Kursk NPP. We also have credible information that Western intelligence agencies, primarily the British MI6, have systematically prepared Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups to organize provocations at nuclear power plants in Russia. In particular, they were working on an operation to blow up power lines connecting nuclear power plants with the Russian national energy grid. These truly insane plans are beyond reckless.
During the Security Council meeting, Russia displayed footage of a Ukrainian prisoner of war who confessed to being instructed to plant explosives at the Kursk nuclear power plant. Another Ukrainian prisoner said their superiors told them to freely attack civilians in the Russian border region. Moscow's envoy added that some foreign mercenaries have taken part in shocking atrocities there. International security consultant Earl Rasmussen says the West will likely distance itself from such cases and let Kiev take all the blame.
I don't think it's really should be a surprise, at least not anyone that's been following this and the complexity of entering into the incursion into Kursk. I think the West will have denial, or they'll put the blame on Ukraine and Ukraine intelligence. But I think it's highly suspicious, or highly likely that Ukraine could come up with this plan on their own, and the details, the imagery, the intelligence that's necessary to carry this out definitely needed some type of Western support. So they'll probably deny it and kind of try to separate themselves for the most part from it, but they'll put this in Ukraine's court, trying to take the fight to Russia.
Don't you see terrorism at its finest? When we're losing, when we can't impose our will, what we'll do, we'll train people up, we'll arm them, we'll make promises to them, we'll embed some of our special forces in with them, and then we'll create havoc. Now, some of this stuff on Russia's border, I blame Russia for. I'm going to be honest with you. Some of this stuff I blame Russia for. Because if Russia would have hit them strongly, and I'm not advocating war, I'm advocating the defense of your territorial integrity and your sovereignty. That's what I'm advocating. And we know that America and the UK, they don't understand conversation. They don't understand negotiation. They don't understand an equal footing. So when people don't speak the language that you're trying to convey to them, you have to then say, if I'm trying to communicate with that person and they seem that they can't get the language that I'm speaking, for me to communicate with them, and I want to make this message clear to them, let me then go to work and learn their language. That way that I can speak their language fluently to them so that they can understand me and I can understand them without a hitch. So the language that the West uses is terrorism. The language that the West uses is the killing of civilians. The language that the West uses is attacking under the guise of helping. The language that the West uses is war. That's the only language that they have shown to be competent of. That's the only language that they have shown to understand. So Russia keeps talking international law. Russia keeps talking that we need to negotiate. Russia keeps, all while Russia's talking, is they're invading Russia, they're shooting in Russia, they're bombing Russia, they're kidnapping Russian civilians, they're doing this, and Russia's trying to show the world that we're this civilized people and we won't stoop to their level. If you want to communicate, and the language that you speak is English, but you're trying to talk to a Chinese, and the Chinese cannot understand your language, not even your body language. The best way to communicate is to learn to speak Chinese. So Russia has to learn the language of the empire. And when Russia learns the language of the empire and starts speaking it fluently back to the empire wants to sit down and talk then. You understand? I hope you guys understand what I just said. All right. Shelley says, and shout out to Shelley. Shelley says, it's in the name, Council of Foreign Relations. Even more so, all of these think tanks, all of them. You have these people who are lunatics, and they believe it is their inherent right to rule everybody and everything. And if I can't rule, if I can't dominate, I'm prepared to send everything up in flames. That's their mind. And you cannot tell me it's not, because we're living in the policies of it. We're living in the reality of their policies. A lot of people don't want to address it. And they'll say, well, maybe if they want to give you this diatribe about civilization and want to give you this diatribe about, but if Russia does this, this could escalate. It's already escalating. Why should Russia be the punching bag until somebody comes to their senses? Why should Syria be the punching bag till somebody comes to their senses? Why should Iran be the punching bag? Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. Why should these nations be the punching bag till the West comes to their senses? Sometimes when a person is frantic and you can't communicate with them, sometimes you got to smack them. Because they've lost their senses and they're so in an uproar that they're not listening, they can't hear, they're panicking. So sometimes you got to slap them back to reality. Why is the burden on the victims to avoid war? For the life of me, nobody has made that point to me. I hear all of the pundits talk. Well, Russia doesn't want to do this because if they do this, then this could escalate. This could escalate. Well, what is being done while Russia is not doing it? Escalation. So what the hell does it mean if Russia does it and it escalates? It's already escalating. Huh? What they're trying to tell you is that they don't want Russia to do it because if the escalation, it may affect them. But it's going to affect them anyhow, because look at the state of world politics. Look at the state of global economies. Look at the state of commerce. It's affecting you anyhow. And if you let this cancer metastasize, it can go thermonuclear. So they still have not come up with a sound reason why Russia just sitting with, well, Russia can outwait the empire. Okay, sit there and wait then and see if she can. See if she can without reacting. You'll see. What you don't understand is that the empire will not give up. Britain and the United States are too tied to this. They understand that without the dollar, there is no British pound. There is no euro. There is no EU. There is no Atlantic integration. There is no rules-based order. They are not comprehending this, the pundits out there. So when you understand that what America, what the UK, and what the EU is doing is because their survival is at stake. If Africa becomes independent, which it will, no free lunches anymore, no free resources anymore. If Asia becomes totally independent, no free lunches anymore, no free resources anymore. The brain drain of Africa, the brain drain of Latin America, the brain drain of Asia stops. So now you have no commodities. You have no, you're not in a position to attract these great minds that was once attracted. You won't be able to get free labor. They are fighting. This is what the West was built on. Why are we overlooking that? And without these free giveaways, it cannot maintain its hegemony and it's lashing out. If you think what I'm saying is a lie, why do you think China has become enemy number one? Huh? As long as China was the second economy, man, where's my mouse at? Hold on one second. As long as China was, one of my screens just went black. Anyway, as long as China was economy number 2, number 3, number 4, America was in no rush to do what she's doing. But now that the global playing field has evened and China is lapping America, it's China's fault for everything. They stole our jobs. It's China's fault. Oh, China's manipulating the currency. Well, when they tell me that, I have to do this. Are you flipping kidding me? Who is more a currency manipulator than the US, the UK, and the EU? When you don't do what they say, they nullify their currency holdings that you have. That's manipulating. If I'm holding 400 million or 400 billion in euros, and you get mad at me, and you say I'm gonna sanction you, so now the 400 million is irredeemable unless they're in your hands. That's not money manipulation, huh? You get mad at me, you freeze my US bank accounts, my British bank accounts. Then you say that I'm left with nothing. That's not money manipulation. That's not currency manipulation. When I go into a bank with a piece of silver or gold to try to redeem it and can't get the redemption of it, or go in there with a note and say, listen, I need gold, because at one time all banks had to hold gold. Excuse me. And I go in there with the money and say, hey, I got this old note I need. It says it's redeemable in silver and gold. Excuse me. Those people look at me like I'm crazy. That's not money manipulation. When you promise to redeem this in gold or silver, and now that I'm with this silver certificate or this silver note, you're looking at me, whoa, that was back then. We can't do this. I know, because I've done that before, just to see the reaction. That's not money manipulation. It's only manipulation when China starts to hedge its yuan with the dollar so that it won't appreciate so much, so that the trade imbalance could flip. That's manipulation. It's not when America does it, or Britain does it, or the EU does it. It's only when China, Russia, Latin America, Africa, Middle Eastern nation does it. That's when it's a problem. Man, stop this. Stop that. I'm not an economist, but I'm not no fool. Shout out to Mehdi. Hey, be safe out there, Mehdi. Mehdi says about the great game. Well, that name in itself gives me pause. Let me see something real quick while I'm talking to you all. I'm going to play those clips too. Hold on 1 second. Now, according to Wikipedia, the Great Game was a rivalry between the 19th century British and Russian empires over influence in Central Asia, primarily in Afghanistan, Persia, and Tibet. Stop right there. Who has a book called The Great Game? Zbigniew Brzezinski. And what did he label West Asia and part of Europe? The Eurasian landmass, right? And what is going on right here, right now? America and Britain and NATO was in Afghanistan, right? Is that not right? All we hear are slogans about free Tibet. Tibet is a part of China, right? And where has the US and the UK and the Israeli military now put their sights? On Iran. Let me read that again. The Great Game was a rivalry between the 19th century British and Russian empires over influence in Central Asia, primarily in Afghanistan, Persia, and Tibet. We have Britain and America on one side, right? We have Russia and China on the other side. They call it a great game. The problem with that title is this. People's lives aren't games. Somebody dies, you can't hit reset and get them back. You understand? To look at the geopolitical landscape and look at it as if it was a game shows the maniacal intentions of people. Because people's lives aren't games. They're not chips in a game. Once that life is snuffed out, that's it. So to just even refer to it as a game shows you that they are lunatics. Okay? Let's see. Let's go to this jumping. Random Reserve says, I'm telling you, people watch closely for news about Moldova, Transnistria, Ukraine border. Their last chance to change the tide will be there. Yeah. I see that. But it'll explode later. All of the chips are there. And with the Transnistria, if they hit those Russian peacekeepers there, I think Russia takes the gloves off. I think Russia goes into Moldova. I believe so. Because Russia has 2,000 troops there. And listen, here's the difference with the situation now. In Transnistria, Russia has a UN mandate there. So they are illegal, regardless of which side you look on. They are under international law, they are legally deployed there as peacekeeping troops. And I think that if they're hit, then you'll see the Russian armed forces take the gloves off and they'll go into Moldova. I believe so. And I'm not talking about just in Transnistria. I'm thinking they'll go in Moldova and they'll turn back the tide of what NATO is trying to do. So NATO better be careful with that. All right. Let's see. Nick Hall says they have their greedy eyes and thieving hands on the sovereignty of Moldova. Not just Moldova. Again, I'm going to tell you this. One nation at a time. The empire wants to gobble you up. When you are a parasite, you must look for prey. Why? Because parasites cannot sustain their own life or their own way of life. They must continue to gobble the life up of others. Do you understand? So if they are not able to find a new host, then guess what happens to the parasite? Eventually, it withers and dies. So it's about any and every nation that it can get. It's not just to the exclusion of Moldova. Hell, they're trying to take Iran because they understand that Iran is Russia, China, India, Pakistan's underbelly, and the key to Central Asia. Because if they can take Iran, Persia, then they control the Indian Ocean, the Caspian Sea, the Gulf of Aden, they can control the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, the Caspian Sea, the waterways, strategic waterways. If they can take Iran, they can control Afghanistan. Then they can do what Reagan wanted to do with the Taliban when he invited them to the White House and run those pipelines through Afghanistan, all down through Iran, all throughout the region, so that they can run them up into the Caspian, over through the so-called Baltics or whatever, the Caucasus, and into Europe, bypassing Russia. This is why they call it a great game. This is why. They're not just looking at Moldova. Moldova is a goal. It's a goal, but it is not the only goal. It is one of many. Look at what they're doing. We're talking about Moldova, which is skirting on a lot of craziness right now. And if they continue to edge toward the West, it's going to provoke Russia. But don't forget, America, France, and the UK are also in Armenia. SCTO member, military partner with Russia. And they have installed their prime minister, and he has taken the nation that has been oriented towards Russia into the Western sphere of influence. So all of this is taking place. How long do you think that these games can go on? How long do you think that, look at this now, that Russia will allow these things to go on? Russia should nip a lot of that in the bud, because America would not allow Russia to do that. If there was a plot found in Italy of Russia trying to overthrow the government, America would immediately stand up and do what she had to do to get Russian influence out of there. If there was, look, she's doing it now, and the people are naturally gravitating towards Russia. If there was a plan for Russia to turn Germany on its side, look what America has done to Germany. So why should Russia let America have a free reign and former Soviet republics? Because eventually she wants to gobble them up into the NATO war machine. So eventually she can have China, Russia, and probably Iran and India surrounded militarily. Because in her papers, she looks for a decapitation strike, even though Russia has warned that they have something called the dead man's hand. And that means that if there was a decapitation strike by the West, Russia has a system that sniffs out nuclear and strategic strikes. I don't know how it works, but it does that. And if there is no response within a matter of certain, I don't know if it's minutes or hours or days, then the dead man hand automatically goes into play and launches all of Russia's nuclear weapons. So what would a decapitation strike do? Nothing but destroy life. But that hadn't stopped the American Britain, because to them, what is this? It's a great game. It's not just a game. It's great to them. Why? Because they're sitting in the positions of power trying to be masters over everybody. They have the wealth. They have the influence, and they want to keep it at all costs. So it's great to them, but it's also a game. And so they view your lives as games. Excuse me. Yes. So let me go some, because we got to go back to something real quick. So we played a video on this, on the Brits. All right. I want to go back to something. Look at what's going on in the EU while they're funding Ukraine. Look at what's going on in the EU while they're trying to overthrow governments, trying to destabilize Africa. I just want you to look at this, okay? This is very, very, very important.
A record number of EU citizens are homeless, seeking emergency accommodation and rely on charities for hot meals. The bloc's legislators say fundamental rights are being flouted.
We are talking about 100 million people who are affected by poverty and social exclusion here on one of the richest continents in the world, more than 1 in 5 in the EU. We need a strategy against poverty.
The cost of living crisis persists in the 27-nation EU as economic activity in the Eurozone continues to slow down.
34% in the EU do not have medical care. Many young people are suffering. Our nations are becoming third world nations. Hospitals cannot look after their patients, and every country in the EU has poverty.
Despite this, the EU has committed 118 billion euro to Ukraine in just the past 2 years and 8 months. Sanctions against Russia have caused a spike in energy prices and inflation.
So at some point, Zelensky and Vladimir Putin have to be together and figure some kind of peace deal, because otherwise the European Union will have more problems.
Since only August, as the bloc's citizens struggle, the EU's economic powerhouse, Germany, has sent military equipment to Israel worth 94 million euro. Instead, many argue the EU should be sending severe economic penalties.
What more will it take for the EU to sanction Israel? Israel has turned Gaza into a sea of rubble. It is engaging in the indiscriminate bombing of Lebanon. Now it has threatened UNIFIL mandate in Lebanon and even attacked UN troops and property.
Analysts suggest the EU's economy is under threat because the bloc's leaders are blindly following America's foreign policy. The growing strength of BRICS also has the potential to seriously undermine the euro. As things stand, the failure to address growing inequality in the EU is already resulting in serious political consequences for the establishment. Anti-EU sentiment is on the rise as frustration mounts among those feeling left behind by the system. Jerome Hughes, Press TV, Brussels.
So do you get what I've been saying lately? Well, I've been saying it since I can remember. That these people can't respect your intellect. You can invest in wars, but you can't invest in the people. Huh? While your infrastructure is crumbling, you got money for war? While your education is declining, you got money for war? While people are struggling, well, parents have to separate because there are laws where they can't be together and accept this aid right here. Even in these hard times, they have to separate to receive it. Then the people talking about the breakup of family and marriage. But you got money for wars. You don't have money for vets, but you have money for wars. The lunacy of these people is astonishing. It's unreal. So while in the Eurozone, which mirrors the United States, there's growing poverty, homelessness, hunger, unemployment, all of that. They can't give the students debt relief. Remember now, these students are saddled with debt. All right? They've come out of college with their degrees and they're saddled with debt. They're working 2 and 3 jobs, not to live. They're trying to pay rent and they have to take 3 roommates, but they're paying off debt, paying on debt. The government cannot free them from debt, but they can excuse Ukraine's debt, excuse other people that accepted their bribes debt. Now, the weight of what I'm saying is this. Those students that are saddled with debt, how do you think that you can maintain your society when those students are your future leaders, lawyers, doctors, scientists, educators, architects, astrophysicists, all of the main components that you need for a thriving society, those are it. But they are not in pursuit of their field of learning because they can't get a job in that field, and they are too concerned about paying off this debt that is unpayable. So how do you think that will turn out for America, for the UK, and for the EU 15 years from now? If you think the playing field is changing rapidly right now, look 15 years down the line as Africa invests more in education, China invests more in education, Asia invests more in education, Latin America invests more in education, how do you think that you are going to be able to compete with that when all you have invested in is war? The people should be rioting and protesting and throwing bricks up in the sky. They should be so mad because of the ineptitude of their leaders. So we're going to transition to something. I want you, we got to talk about Africa. We got to talk about Iran. I know the time is limited, so I'm going to try to play a couple quick, well, they won't be quick, but a couple of videos for you all. All right. I want you to pay close attention to this, and I'll be putting your comments on the screen as the videos play, okay? Before I do that, I want to take the time out right now to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the platform. You did not have to give your time for this, but you chose to. I really, really appreciate it. From the bottom of my heart to the depth of my soul, I want to convey to you all right now, I am truly appreciative of the time that you have allotted to me, okay? And I want you to not to think harsh of me, all right? Sometimes I'm a country boy. And sometimes I might not speak the Queen's English. And I might not say it in the most acceptable manner. But what I'm saying is truth. And you just got to accept truth, regardless of who it comes from. Truth is truth. And sometimes I might say it in an unpalatable way, but it's the truth. All right? And so I ask you to charge it to my head and not to my heart, because my heart is trying to convey truth to you. And sometimes my head is like, hey, give it to him from this perspective. All right? So just bear with me, and I guarantee you that you'll get some truth. All right? So I want to play these clips here. First, this is a 4.5-minute clip. I want to play, this is Mohammed Marandi. This was yesterday, or I think last night or something. And he's talking about the situation with Iran and Israel, okay?
Along with Syed Mohsen Abbas, journalist and political commentator, joining us out of London. Professor Marandi, we're going to start with you. We know you're on a limited schedule, so we'll start with you, sir. Your initial thoughts on this aggression by the entity, the Zionist entity, against our country?
It was an expected attack. It was a large attack. Fortunately, Iran's air defenses proved to be very capable. A large number of missiles, I think the majority of the missiles, were brought down. And the Iranians also used decoys and dummies, and intelligence disinformation was used to mislead the Israeli regime in striking fake targets. And some of the missiles simply missed. So the Israeli regime failed in this attack. It was nothing of comparison to the Iranian strike a few weeks ago. And I think it's a clear indication not only of Iran's defense capabilities, but also of the fact that the Israeli regime is not the powerful entity that it pretends itself to be. It has mythologized its power for decades with the help of the West. Of course, all of its capabilities belong to the West. The regime has nothing of its own. All its planes, its ammunition, its missiles, everything comes from the West, literally. Even those things that are made in Palestine, they are done with Western funding. So the myth of the power of the Israeli regime has been shattered. And we also see the same in Gaza, and more recently on the border between Palestine and Lebanon. For a month now, the Israeli regime has been saying that they're going to take a chunk of land in Lebanon, the southern part of Lebanon. And just yesterday, a senior military official has said that the operation in Lebanon is almost over, and that's quite extraordinary because they failed to make any inroads in Lebanon. So we see their military failure at the hands of Hezbollah. We see their failure in Gaza, and of course we see their failure. We saw their failure last night against and early this morning against the Islamic Republic of Iran.
And Professor, before we let you go, one last quick question. The challenge is now moving forward. How do you see Iranian leadership navigating? It's a precarious situation, isn't it? Because if the Zionist entity is trying to push for regional escalation to pit Iran against the Americans, Iran has to be cautious there, but it also cannot leave this latest, and a lot of Iranian officials have said it will not leave any attack unanswered.
The era of strategic patience is over. Iran, when the Israelis and the Americans carried out a cyber attack on its nuclear program years ago, Iran didn't retaliate. When they murdered Iranian scientists, including a colleague of mine at the University of Tehran, Iran didn't retaliate. In Syria, when they were aiding ISIS and Al-Qaeda and murdered Iranian officers who were fighting against them, Iran showed strategic patience. But after the bombing of the Iranian embassy, Iran retaliated. After the murder and martyrdom of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, the leader of Hamas, Iran retaliated. And Iran will retaliate again, because Iran has to make sure that deterrence is established. And Iran has the power to do that. The Israeli regime knows that. The Americans know that. So there will be retaliation. And one other thing that I'd like to add is that a lot of intelligence has been gathered about U.S. military technology last night and this morning. And I'm sure there are countries that would very much like Iran to share that information with them. And I'm quite confident that the Iranians will do that.
Thank you, Professor. Pleasure to have you on. Stay safe. And thank you once again, Sayyid Mohammad Marandi, professor out of the University of Tehran. They're joining us from the Iranian capital. Stay safe.
So a few things about that video. As this video was taking place, they were showing the areas that were supposed to be destroyed in the background. They were showing the videos of them while Professor Marandi was talking. And he made a point to say that the era of strategic patience is over. Because I was looking to see would anybody address this head on, because the generals, it seemed like they were sliding back, seemed like other officials were sliding back on what they were saying. But he said that Iran is going to hit back. They're going to hit back. He said the era of strategic patience is over. And so we're going to go to the next clip. This clip also has Professor Marandi on there, okay? Oh, and by the way, everybody, I'm working on some guests for you guys. That's why I haven't had. I might have. We're trying to get our schedule linked. Mike Mihalovich, he may be back on the show. I think he said he has a date open Thursday. If I'm open Thursday, I got to check my schedule. But if I'm open Thursday, we may have him on the show Thursday. Mike Mihalovich, former captain of the Serbian Armed Forces, the Serbian Army, he may be on the show Thursday. If we can mesh our schedules. And I have a whole lot of people that I'm planning to bring in the coming weeks, okay? So, and shout out to my guy, Larry Johnson, for hooking me up, all right? I won't say what he hooked, but yeah, looking out for me. So check this out. I'm gonna play this next clip right here. Pay close attention.
Tehran University professor Syed Mohammad Marandi. Professor Marandi, the Pentagon issued a statement denying U.S. involvement and saying these strikes should be the end of Iran and Israel's exchange of fire. Do you think that statement is realistic, that the U.S. wasn't involved and that this could be the end?
The U.S. was definitely involved. The U.S. is involved in all of the Israeli regime's aggressions. It is involved in the Holocaust in Gaza. It is involved in the genocidal airstrikes in Lebanon. They give intelligence, they give ammunition, they give the weapons. So without the United States, the Israeli regime would collapse, and collapse quite quickly. But the attack on Iran was a major failure. The regime has said that they used large numbers of aircraft and that it was a major assault. And it's obvious that Iran's air defenses brought most of them down. In Tehran, we have not seen any damage. and if there was damage in some military in a military installation near the border or in a couple of military installations, it does not seem significant. Otherwise, people would notice, because people around those bases would see major explosions that we haven't seen. So I think this was quite humiliating for the Israeli regime. But as the foreign minister pointed out, the Iranians will retaliate, just as they've done in the past. So the Israeli regime will have to accept the fact that they're going to be receiving punishment, and significant punishment, for this failure.
How do you think Iran will respond?
Well, we'll have to see it. Obviously, the military and the political leaders in the country will sit together, and they will choose what to strike and how to punish the regime. But we have to remember that the Iranians need to create deterrence. Netanyahu is not, and the Israeli leadership, they're not reasonable people. These are people who carry out genocide. They bomb hospitals, they bomb schools, they bomb women and children. They pretend that there are tunnels under hospitals so that they can destroy them. They pretend gold is under other hospitals so they can destroy them too. These are people who are not like you and me. So the Iranians have to hit them hard in order to make sure that they regret attacking the country. And I think after last night's failure and the effectiveness of Iran's anti-missile capabilities, the Israeli regime will be very concerned about subsequent exchanges, because Iran has a huge arsenal of missiles. It has many underground missile cities. It can fire well over 1,000 missiles at one go, and the same is true with drones. And they can fire wave after wave for a very long period of time. Remember, these underground missile cities and drone cities were created for potential conflict with the United States. When the U.S. invaded Iraq and Afghanistan and had its huge presence in the Persian Gulf region, the Iranians were deeply concerned. So they created all these well-protected underground installations that had huge firepower to deter the United States. The Israeli regime doesn't have anything near the capabilities of the United States. So it would definitely be badly defeated in a series of exchanges, heavy exchanges with Iran. And of course, the real question is not what Netanyahu can do. We've already seen that he can't do much. But what will the United States do? If the United States enters the fight, then Iran will have to deal with U.S. bases in the region, and those oil-rich Arab dictatorships that host those bases, they too will be seen as hostile. So that would mean an end of oil and gas exports from the Persian Gulf region, and that would lead to a global economic catastrophe. So the smart thing for Washington to do is to back off, and also to yank hard on Netanyahu's leash, because he is going to be punished.
Would Washington do that, though? I mean, Professor, you say that this overnight attack by Israel was a failure, though Israel says that its military objectives were achieved. I mean, is Israel's real goal to get Washington into this mess, and would Washington actually back off?
Well, I think anyone who saw the footage of the Iranian limited strike on the Israeli regime a few weeks ago and compares that to what we've seen last night, which wasn't anything really, they recognize that Iran is far more powerful and capable in these sort of strikes. Iran, as I said, has a huge arsenal. What the only question is that whether Washington recognizes what is at stake here for its own people, for the United States. And whether they're going to take a step simply because Netanyahu wants them to take such a step. I find it hard to imagine at the moment for the Americans to get directly involved. Because Israel, as I said, Israel is already losing the war. They've lost in Gaza. They still haven't been able to take Gaza, this dot on the map, despite this Holocaust, ongoing Holocaust, despite the genocidal strikes on Lebanon. They've been badly beaten on the border over the last 4 weeks by Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is firing into Israel. And now we see that the Israeli military is changing their objectives in Lebanon. Why? Because they've lost. They were supposed to take a huge chunk of southern Lebanon and control it. Now they're saying their operations are nearing an end. So the limits of the Israeli regime's capabilities are becoming clearer by the day. And I think last night reaffirmed that. So really, the only thing left now for Netanyahu is the United States. But again, as I said, does the United States want to wreck the global economy and wreck its own economy, or is the United States going to be more sane?
All right, we're going to leave it there. Tehran University Professor Syed Mohammed Marandi. Professor Marandi, thank you.
Things here. You hear he said they will be punished, right? He said they will, Netanyahu will be punished, and they are going to respond to this attack. This is what he said. Now, he also said that the United States takes the lead in this. I told you guys that. I told you when the things were going on, right before it happened, I said for this to take place, the United States would have to take the lead. Now, not patting myself on the back, did you guys see the air route that was taken? They were talking about it yesterday or day before yesterday on the news, the air route through either Jordan, into Iraq, into well, not into Iran, but right there on the Iranian border, or through the Syrian Iraqi area up into the Iranian border. Are those not the same routes that I told you about? Put the maps up and told you the routes that would have to be taken for any strikes to take place. Go look at the last show, or the show before last. The maps are up there. I told you what would happen, and the United States would have to call in multiple tankers and all of this stuff. She would have to take the lead because this is out of the scope of the occupying Israeli regime's capacity. Common sense tells you that. And being vindicated, it makes me smile because I'm fighting against the censors, the bigger channels. It seems like they want to suppress everything, you know. But God is good. You cannot stop what God has ordained, you know. I want to play this 15-second clip because I did not play it at the beginning of the other clips, and I have another clip I want to play for you all. But let me play this because I don't want any problems from YouTube. Thank you, Rumble, for not sweating me like that. Odyssey for not sweating me like that. But we got the Sweat Master, and I gotta put this up there for them. All right, now we're back. So now, this is what was written by Oleg Baranov, excuse me. He says, U.S. played critical support role in Israel's strike on Iran. Now, critical support role, I want to just advance something to you. If you were breaking into my neighbor's house, and I gave you the time that the neighbor leaves and usually comes home. I ran interference for you. I gave you the map of the house. I gave you the gun. I stood waiting with my gun just in case he popped up on without you knowing. And I'm in the bushes in the neighbor's yard, and it's hot outside, so I'm throwing you up bottles of water through the window so you can drink. Is that a support role or is that a lead role? I kicked in the back door for you to come in. I disabled the cameras. Is that a support role or is that the lead role and you're using somebody in support of what you're trying to do and you're puppeting them around? It looks more to me like America was the lead and Israel was the support role. Because remember, I was saying this long before anybody said anything. And now everybody is saying this, that Dick Cheney, when he was referring to the war in Iraq, anyone can go to Baghdad, but real men go to Tehran. I was the one quoting that, and now everybody else is quoting that. But that lets me know that they listen. This small channel is your favorite channel. All right. In this article, on October 26th, the Israeli Defense Forces launched 3 waves of precise strikes on, it says precise, it didn't say precision, of precise strikes on Iranian military targets. And what Tel Aviv said was response to Tehran's missile attack on the Jewish state in early October. Can they flip stuff around? It was in response to Iran's attack, but Iran's attack was a counterattack or response to the multiple attacks by Israel. So how can anybody even think that Israel's attack was a response? It was just an escalation. And it says, there are signs indicating that the U.S. could have been involved in the deadly Israeli air raid on Iran on September 26. Dr. Imad Salameh, Associate Professor of Political and International Affairs at the Lebanese American University, told Sputnik. The U.S. and Israel appear to have been in full coordination for the recent Israeli strike on Iranian territory. High-level meetings and discussions between the two countries, political and military leaders preceded the attack, underscoring a collaborative approach. Now, he is absolutely right. Those were not just Israeli planes, those were U.S. planes. They thought that they could penetrate Iranian airspace, and they were beaten back. They did not even penetrate Iranian airspace. They had to stay 70 to 80 miles away from the Iraq-Iranian border to fire their missiles and their drones or whatever. Because there was supposed to be multiple waves of attack. And when they could not penetrate that first, they had to recalibrate, and then they have to return. So, with that said, it says there are signs indicating. I told you that. Go to the show. I said, sources told me that America would be a part. She would be leading this. Now in Sputnik, they're saying there are signs. Right there. But I want to show you the terrorist nature of this stuff. Because most people, I continue to say this, and I'm going to continue to beat this drum. Most people don't understand where we are in time. Calculate time, okay? That's something that one must understand. For if you arrive at the wrong time, something could happen to you or someone else, right? If you run a stop sign at the wrong time, you can be killed or kill somebody else. Right? At the wrong time. We're at a junction in time now that America and the Western so-called rules-based order has lived out its lifetime. How do we know? How do we calculate this? All right? Because to understand time, one must be able to calculate time. And all one has to do is take a starting point, right? And move from motion to motion to motion to get to where we are right now. And that means go down the hands of time, history, and look at where we were and where we are. And then do a comparative analysis of what took place with empires before, when they were in the same situation, and where we are now. That's how you calculate time. If you cannot do that when you have a watch on, if there's no motion in your watch and I ask you for time, what do you tell me? My watch is dead. Why is it dead? Because it's no good for calculating time. So what we're doing on this show, we're trying to calculate time to show you where we are in time, in history. Okay? We're at the end of an empire. And when I say the empire, I'm talking about the British American Empire. We're at the end of that. We're at the end of so few people dominating so many. We're at the end of the order where America and the West had so many advantages. And their advantages were built on robbery, murder, rape, occupation, and domination. Because now technology has expanded in such a way that other nations are quickly leaping forward and catching up in manufacturing, in technology. So it limits the movement of the empire, because now people have what you have. And they're now starting to look back at all of their troubles and all of the terror events and all of the terror strikes and all of the assassinations and color revolutions and all of the kidnappings and all of this stuff. And they're saying, hold on, these things have a common denominator. Because everything is math. When you lay out everything, it's math. Math. And so what you're looking at is a common denominator. Who was here then? Who funded them? Who helped them? Okay, now over here, how did they get these weapons? Who gave them political cover? Who funded them? Go here, saying, so they're coming with a common denominator with ISIS, with Boko Haram, with Al Qaeda, with all of these other, and they're coming up and saying, hold on, America has a hand in that. Hold on, Britain has a hand in that. Hold on, France has a hand in that. Hold on. NATO has a hand in that. The common denominators, right? You learned about common denominators in basic math, right? And we see that the common denominators in political instability, in war, in sanctions, in the theft of wealth are these nations, right? I'm gonna play something for you, and it is starting to dawn on other people that the common denominator are the very people who scream about freedom, justice, and equality. The very people who scream about the need to fight terrorism. The very people who scream about fairness and justice. We're getting ready to see that nations are waking up to who are the causes, the root causes of the instability of the global architecture. All right, listen to this. This is only 2 minutes.
Terrorism has cost the continent of Africa over $170 billion over the past decade. That is according to Morocco's permanent representative to the African Union.
The African continent has suffered economic losses amounting to $171 billion due to terrorism over the past decade. The activities of terrorist groups in Africa have devastating consequences, causing upheaval, mass displacement of populations, and leading to significant human casualties.
It's an astonishing amount, isn't it? Well, West Africa is one of the world's extremist hotspots, with the Global Terrorism Index ranking the Sahel region as the epicenter of militant violence. Jihadist groups with links to Al Qaeda or Islamic State have killed thousands of civilians and displaced millions across Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger in recent years, with Somalia also gripped by conflict. Well, head of the Mali-based African Party for Integration and Sovereignty, Boubacar Bokoum, says Western states don't overly care about sectarian violence in the Sahel, as it can be used to undermine African sovereignty and keep that deep grip on the area's rich resources.
This revelation makes it abundantly clear that we are in fact in what we call a global economic war. NATO countries are deliberately putting us in this war situation, which is financed by violent extremist movements. They always want to drag Africa down. They create problems of insecurity that we are obliged to resolve, not only by killing young people who are in fact the future of this country, if not the continent. Secondly, we spend a great deal of money resolving these issues, which impoverishes us. Already we know that on the economic checkbook we don't have a great rating. The global economy doesn't give us enough space. Our resources and materials are basically disappearing because we invest so much in them to achieve an acceptable level of security. So today's revelation is proof enough that what we spend to maintain security in the face of terrorism is extremely expensive. But this is maintained by the West to keep the African continent in a situation of extreme poverty. Yes, because the conspiracy is to make Africa fall as far as it can, so that it absorbs the world's shocks. Everything is done to keep Africa from getting back on its feet.
Go back to that because they were talking about terrorism, and the first thing the guy said was NATO. Right? What that alliance? Hold on one second. I want to bring it up. NATO alliance. All right. I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure. It was 32. It's 32 countries. It says the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. It says treaty organization, but it's the largest terrorist organization on the planet. So I use terrorist organization. The North Atlantic Terrorist Organization is a military alliance of 32 European and North American countries that work together to defend each other and promote democratic values. First of all, North America only consists of three nations, and that's Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And two of the three are NATO members, right? So, and it says that it is a military alliance of European and North American countries. So they're claiming that Australia and New Zealand are European countries when they're really not. They're in Asia. They're in Asia. See, we have to go through this double speak, man. We have to break through that stuff there. So you hear the African person say that NATO is behind this terrorism in Africa, and they continue to use that as a justification for military presence. I've told you that. But what are they telling us about the terrorism? They say Africa has been flooded by Boko Haram, right? By ISIS, by Al-Qaeda. The reason I played you that video before is because I told you we were coming back to that. I want you to listen again to the videos about who created Boko Haram and ISIS and ISIL and Al-Qaeda and all of this other stuff. I just want you to listen, because this puts so much emphasis on what the African leader was saying, the African person was saying. Listen.
We created ISIS. I mean, ISIS is no less than the people up in Islamberg, no less than Gulen, is a CIA creation. John McCain, for heaven's sake, was over there with the ISIS officials. We created them. They came from the Al-Nusra group, the Syrian Liberation Front. These two organizations combined, and they morphed into ISIS. It's our creation. We create them. We still direct them. When ISIS warriors are injured in battle, where are they transported? They're transported, for heaven's sake, to Israel. They're treated by the Israelis in Israeli hospitals and brought back to battle.
Well, plenty of the rebels have acknowledged that they've been supported by Israel, and they've thanked Israel for helping them draw. In fact, arms are oftentimes caught. Israeli arms are caught on en route to the rebel groups.
Listen to this.
Against the state of Israel, political plots, and others.
You tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad's Institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS. Just simple words like that. Interestingly enough, kind of a British model.
Interesting enough, kind of a British model. Why would he say that? Because that's what Britain was known for and how it kept its empire. It caused trouble and chaos in the lands that it occupied and the surrounding areas so that it can keep the people destabilized and focusing on a non-existent threat, so that they won't have time to focus on the occupying threat. And while they're focusing on the non-existent threat that hits here, hits there, and have you running everywhere else, expending what resources that you still have, the British Empire was extracting resources and riches like this. The U.S. is doing the same thing. NATO is doing the same thing. I'm just showing you. And I know people get angry, but it's the truth. Please hit the like button. Excuse me. Please hit the like button. At any given time during the show, we've had between 20 and 50 people live watching the show. And I thought we would have more, but we didn't have more today. It was like 50. I think the highest, what was it? The concurring rate was, it was 65. I'm sorry. But it doesn't matter. If only one came, just hit the like button. All right. So I want to play, in closing, I want to play this clip right here. All right. This is about 1 minute.
If China owns $800 billion of U.S. debt, which they do, then of course the United States, as the borrower, has to pay interest, which means that you and I and everybody else gets to pay taxes every year that go to Washington, where they don't fund our roads or schools or hospitals. It's money that the United States government collects and sends to Beijing to pay interest on the debt. And the Chinese use to develop the Red Army. Do you understand? All of this has to happen beneath the surface. Because if Americans understood what I just said, they would realize that beneath all the reality is the opposite. That's the reality of the economic of capitalism.
So I'm closing with that video because I want to put something on your mind. America sees China as its greatest threat, and I pulled a sheet off of everything. It's because it's non-white, non-Western nation, and it's independent, and it does not kowtow or bow to U.S. dictates. Right? It has its own sovereign interest that it pursues. This is unacceptable for the empire. Excuse me. So the reason I played that clip is to show you that the U.S. is in such a dire economic state that now they are playing crackhead politics. And what I mean by that, as long as the dope dealer was buying the dirty clothes from and trading it out for crack, and as long as the dope dealer was giving them the dope that they needed for a little bit of nothing, everything was okay. But now that the dope dealer has pulled back a little bit, the United States is now ready to rob its supplier, ready to wage war with the people that gives it its fix. That's the mind of a crackhead. That's crackhead politics. That's the mind of somebody who is addicted to substance, some kind of substance. They can't, because the addiction blinds them. They cannot see that attacking that person is not in their best interest when it comes to what they want. But all they can see right now is that moment right there. This is how I can get my fix. I can go and rob China. I can go and wage war. And I know everybody say I can't win, but if I can just hit them in the eye and snatch the dope bag and run, I can get high just for a few minutes, and I'll figure out all of the rest later. That's the mind of a lunatic. That's the mind of the British American Empire that is quickly dissipating and collapsing. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend Rashid. And remember always to do right by others, not because it's the popular thing to do and because other people are watching. No, do it because it's the right thing to do. And even when no one else is watching, God is always watching. Until we next speak again, know that I love you with all of my heart if you love truth. But know that the love that God would have for you will always make the love that I have for you pale in comparison to his. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true. but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody, and thank each and every one of you. We're out of here. Peace.